So welcome back to the second video podcast of Holistic Athlete, Mental Skills Training for Optimal Performance. Once again, I'm Zach Etter, and this time I'm joined by a fellow classmate of mine, Kyle Higney. A lot of athletic counseling power at the table here. What's up, Kyle? Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Zach. I'm excited.
So just wanted to ask, to let people know what your experience is. Kyle is both the head varsity basketball coach at Palmer High School, as well as an athletic counseling master's student here at Springfield College. So if you could just kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. And so as an athletic counseling student, I'm in my second year of my master's program. We do a lot of focus on the athlete as a whole and focusing on who they are as an individual to explore how they can do better in sport, how they can do better in life, and how they can succeed in that way.
Okay.
And then coaching, this is going to be my first year as the head varsity coach for Palmer High School boys basketball. I've spent the last 2 years coaching the JV team. And so I'm really excited to take this next step up and kind of take on that heavier responsibility of leading this team.
Great. Maybe talk a little louder. I'm not sure if that's going to pick
Okay.
up. So you just were named the varsity basketball coach. What have you done so far to get ready for the season?
Well, from the get-go, since the end of last season, it's been preparation nonstop, even before knowing that the job was mine. But just preparing myself for this opportunity, for this moment, it's a lot of watching old game film.
Yep.
It's a lot of exploring new plays, thinking about the current system that we have, knowing that I have the fortunate circumstance of knowing the people that are in my program.
Yeah.
And so I know what we have for different positions, what we have for guys, what we have for different preferred play styles. And so I can tailor some of the things that I look into for that. And then it's a lot of organization, it's a lot of keeping tabs and keeping up to date with everyone and seeing how they're doing. And then even during the school year, it's how are they doing their classes, how are they doing their extracurricular activities in their other sports, which is a really important thing as well.
Yeah, we both have a coaching background, and now we're both here, doing this work. And it was a conversation that kind of came up at the ASP conference in Orlando sometimes about the dual role between a coach, but we also have now a sports psych background, so it's sometimes difficult to kind of choose one or the other. Do you find that difficult sometimes to kind of choose one or the other? Like, I need to coach this kid, but I also know, psychologically and mental skills wise, like what the right and wrong thing to do is?
It's absolutely an interesting role to have,
Yeah.
knowing everything you do as an athletic counselor, of so much of what goes into sports psychology and then individual counseling of the athlete, as well as needing to be the coach.
Yeah.
I think good coaches are able to incorporate sports psychology and athletic counseling type of ideas, but it's a very, very much different scenario than just being able to go fully into that counseling role.
Yeah.
I need
What
to know
do you
what's
think
best.
the difference is for the most part?
I think it's knowing what's best for the athletes and knowing what's best for the players in a specific moment. And so if they're struggling, if they're having a tough time in a counseling situation, you have the time to kind of sit back and ask them questions and have them explore themselves about everything that's going on and trying to get that deeper understanding and really developing that super close, kind of almost like intimate in a way, relationship, just in terms of what they share with you, and it can be a very vulnerable situation.
But that can be helpful for the athlete.
Yeah, that can be
if
helpful.
it's done in the right way.
Absolutely. And then as a coach, sometimes that's not what they need in a specific moment.
Right.
You can use that
X's and O's wise, like being an athlete.
From X's and O's, but then also just being there for support. The support system can be different, I would say.
Okay. And do you think, now you coach high school, we work here with college student athletes, and then some of us are trying to get jobs in professional sports, college sports, high school sports, whatever it is. How do you feel that working with high school athletes differs from college athletes?
There's a lot with transitions that are different.
In college?
Yeah. Absolutely. In college, you're dealing with, transitioning athletes from high school into college, and so it's a whole different lifestyle for them. They have access to a lot more resources that they didn't have before, some good, some bad, and it can be dealing with that. It can be dealing with being away from home for some of these athletes for the very first time. It can be dealing with a lot higher level of competition than they faced previously.
Right. So while they were extremely successful as a senior in high school. Now they come to college and they're freshmen and they're little fish in a big sea, as opposed to the other way around, and that could be a challenging transition for them to have to deal with mentally as well as physically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you think when you coach high school, for me, I coached in high school, I coached in college, and now I came here, and so that was kind of the trajectory that I took. But for you, you have the, I guess, opportunity to go back and coach after a year and a half of this education. How do you feel that you're going to take what we've learned in the past year and a half and translate it into going and coaching these kids, this coming season and moving forward?
And as I said before, I think good coaches are able to incorporate these types of techniques and tools already.
Yeah.
And so but a lot of it can be more basic than I feel like a lot of people would make it out to be.
Yeah.
And so I think a big portion of it would be just relationship building.
Yeah.
And so if you are able to build relationships, know that, or have the players know that you are there for them, that you are there to fight by their side every single day, then you can get that trust from them.
Yep.
And when you have that type of understanding, when they know that they can be honest with you and you can be honest with them and you can hold them accountable, and that they can respect the role and know that you know what you're talking about, then that just makes for a good team dynamic. And it's from that point that you can learn together, that you can reach a higher level and work harder, and hopefully that turns into success, whether you determine success being wins or development or the people that they become.
Yeah, you bring up what is success, and you have the option to define your own success. Joe Casamento is a friend of mine who I met through Frank Stamilio and the Nike Coach of the Year clinic for the football clinic. He's one of the most successful high school coaches ever in the United States, preliminary with Christian Brothers Academy in New York. And he gives motivational speeches, and he kind of says something along the lines of, if you're at your funeral and you have all the people who love and care about you around you, what do you want them to say? And many people wouldn't say, I won 12 championships, or I won 80% of my games, or my kids had 13 conference championships, and 2 of them
He
went
was
pro.
a great coach. He was a great person. Helped me learn so much about myself that I never would have.
And people have a hard time losing sight of that. And the example that Coach Kaz gives is kind of it's an example of perspective. When it's all said and done, what's most important. Now, what's kind of the devil's advocate to that is winning does generate a culture.
Of course.
But I think what's important to remember is, if you try to win, in my opinion, if you try to win, that's hard to do. But if you try to generate a culture of student athletes who are caring and responsible and on time and all that,
fun.
Right, then winning takes care of itself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
it's that question of what comes first.
Right.
It's just like fun or winning kind of thing. And that's a big part of my coaching philosophy is that we need to have fun, and having fun is working hard, and it's through that hard work that you can get those wins. But even if you don't get that win, it's learning from that opportunity and saying, it's just like, that was a really fun basketball game. We may not have come out on top today, but we played so well, and it was just minor things that maybe didn't go our way. And there's things that we can fix, there's things that we can adjust and we can game plan for, and that we can work on, and we can get better from this. But it's having fun playing basketball, it's having fun playing with your friends that you get to go to high school with every single day, that you look back at these memories.
And I wonder how much the business aspect of college athletics kind of takes that away. I mean, there's pressure on coaches to win or they lose their jobs. A coach, when I first took a job at the University of Connecticut as a student assistant coach there for the team, one of the coaches said to me, he was like, jobs, lives, families, and millions of dollars rest on the result of every Saturday. And I'm like, okay. It's like, that's a tough expectation to have to deal with. And I feel like in high school, you really have the ability to mold student athletes emotionally, as men, physically. And
it's a huge developmental stage.
Right. Whereas college, it's almost like a job for them.
Yeah.
And that's it's difficult to try to penetrate and say, hey, let's just have fun, when the reality is that the result does matter. So when the result matters, it's what do we have to take care of around that to have fun, build character, be the team that we want to be on and off the field, and have the results take care of itself.
It sounds like a whole lot that there is to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it can all kind of be combined together.
Yeah.
And it becomes a part of your system. It becomes a part of your culture.
Yeah.
And then it's just something that you live and breathe every single day.
Yep. All right. So I want to move on to the blog post from earlier this week.
Yeah.
The post on Tuesdays. Once again, I'm going to try to post on Tuesdays in the blog, and then Fridays or Saturdays. We'll record these on Thursdays, and then Friday or Saturdays I'll post the video blog to the website. So the blog post this week is "What is your why?" It's a very common saying here at Springfield College. A lot of teams and coaches and athletics here use that. It's almost like a motto here. And what I wanted to kind of delve into is, what are we really asking? And what is the point, and why is that a useful question? I talked about with Jack Pino last week, and a lot of athletes that I work with. What does it look like? How can you work on it, and how can you practice it? And how is it a positive end result? So when you think about what is your why, how would that help you when learning about the players that you're coaching, and why is that important?
And as you talked about in your blog post, you mentioned motivation
Mm-hmm.
and intrinsically and extrinsically motivated people,
Yeah.
and then what that looks like. And so I think understanding your why is a lot about trying to understand your motivations for why do you play the sport, who do you play it for. It's just like what drives you. If you can understand what is driving you, then at least in terms of the players, I can understand what their role is.
Yep.
And I can understand what they're looking for. I can understand their expectations that they have of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can become a better coach, so I can better serve them.
Yep.
And through that, I know how I can maximize their potential.
Yep.
And it's almost so you can get those individual whys from everyone, and then you can find what's common, what's different, what's just like why, or how is this person's why just developing a little bit further on this other person's why. And so you can kind of create a team collective why we do this.
Yeah.
And so
I'm going to ask you in a second what your why is, but kind of going off that, and I was alluding to it a little bit at the end of the blog post, but I wanted to wait and talk about it here. What I would like to do with a team is, like you said, you find out what each individual's why is, right? But when you have a college team, it's different than high school, because in high school they usually all know each other. They're from the same town with similar backgrounds, similar upbringings. In college, it's completely different. Mm-hmm. So everybody's experience is different. They're from different families, different situations, different socioeconomic classes. All of those things come into play. So what I would like to do early on in the process, for football, maybe fall camp in August, is you find out the individual reasons why and throw them up on a board. And you could see the commonalities that maybe we have more in common than we think. And I think if you really want to get to know a person, if you really want to say, okay, who is this athlete? Who is this freshman? Who is this senior? What are they playing for? Why are they here? I think that's critical information for the rest of the team to know as well. Because at the end of the day, you have to trust the person next to you, and you can't trust them unless you know why they're there.
And notice how it all boils back down to relationship building.
Right, yeah, it does.
That's just
That's
the
a way to
building
build
block
relationships.
of the way that you're able to be a team.
Mm-hmm. So I think in that, if you wanted to do that exercise, you could ask what is your why, and then come back with what is our why, and then let's go play.
Yeah.
With a clear sense of what that is in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be something that coaches can utilize with this question.
Yeah.
For sure. So what is your why?
That's a good segue into this, because, my why is, personally, basketball has just been a part of my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten so much out of my relationship with basketball growing up. My father was always one of my coaches. And then when I reached high school, the coach that I had then, he was the coach that hired me to be his JV coach. And so just the relationships that I was able to build through that, and how much that's meant to me, I want to be able to give that, or I want to be a part of that for the athletes that come through my system.
Yeah.
And so even though that's kind of like personally focused with me, I think then kind of branches back out into it's serving these athletes, and it's helping my guys have a positive experience with basketball, a positive experience with school, good memories to look back on once they reach that point to kind of reflect.
To serve them better moving forward.
Yeah, and so it's really to serve them, because I know how good they are, and it's just like I know their talent, and it's like I can do X's and O's and everything, but what makes the difference both for now and their futures is the type of individual that they become.
Now let me ask you this, and it's an honest question.
Yeah.
How much, if at all, is winning involved in that?
I think winning can be a byproduct of it,
Okay.
but it is not the main focus whatsoever.
Okay.
The main focus is development, both skill development for basketball, and then identity and just human development for these young men.
And I think that's important, if you refer back to the second blog post that talks about fixed mindset versus growth mindset.
Absolutely.
That winning is a byproduct of doing all the little things right. And if you're a program or a coach or a team that focuses on the process and focuses on the character development and the athletic development and the human development, not only would winning be a byproduct, but winning isn't something that is seen as a failure or not. Like if you go out and you prepare the right way and you practice the right way and you play really hard and you play really well, then we talk about controlling the controllables. Whether you win or not is in your control to a certain extent. You can control how prepared you are, you can control your execution, but you can't really control what the other team does, what the refs do, what the weather conditioning is. So it's not about winning, it's about doing all the things within your program that are in your control with the assumption that winning is a byproduct of taking care of all of those things.
I'm not coaching for wins.
Yeah. And that's a tough concept for people to understand.
Right. I feel like that even applies for college coaches though.
Right.
Or professional coaches. You don't coach for the win.
Yeah.
Like it's not a win by win sort of game or process. You're coaching these young men, these young women, these students, these athletes, so that they can get better and grow together, and you develop that team cohesion. And it's when you do that, it's when you are successful, or that you can put your players in a better position and provide them with a positive environment that they're able to thrive in that way. Then that's when winning can happen. But losing can still happen too.
Right.
And that's when it boils back down to fun.
And it's like, well, it's what's important to us in the program. I listened to Justin Fuente, who's the head football coach at Virginia Tech, give a presentation at the National Coaches Convention in Nashville last year, and what he said, and it's a little different than high school athletics and even some college athletics, but what he said is he talked about building a program around values. James Franklin talks about Penn State's 5 core values for their football team. And the fact of the matter is when you're coaching at that level, you have Division I athletes, you have 80 scholarship players. So if you do all of those things right, you're going to win, and everybody should understand that that's like the goal.
But that's to make it a part of your culture.
But that's not necessarily the process.
Right.
The goal-oriented result is to win games, but the process has nothing to do with winning. And that's a really tough thing for people outside of maybe our profession or outside the coaching profession to really understand. You don't go to work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday trying to win the game on Saturday.
Right.
You go trying to win the day on Monday, which probably involves showing up to lift on time, giving good effort, going to class, sitting in the front row, raising your hand, participating, doing all those things, and then suddenly on Saturday you're up 24-0, and it's like, how did this happen? And the reason is because the team was process oriented, and their why was for the right reasons.
Yeah. Their why individually could just be to grow as a person, grow as an individual, grow as a player, as an athlete, as a basketball player. And then even more so than that, their why can be for the guy standing right next to me on the court. Or the guy supporting me on the bench.
That's the dream.
Or I play for my coach who I know has my back at all moments.
That's a process to get to that point as a program where everybody truly believes that and buys in, but it needs to be worked on every day.
Right.
And I feel like, it's also a little bit like trust, how trust can take years to build and a second to, tear down. I feel like that could be the case with, a program's values. And, when your reasoning for playing starts to become the wrong thing, it's the coach's job to put their feet in the ground and change that,
right.
For their players. I think that's all for today. I'm going to let you go. I don't want to run too over. But thank you for tuning in. I will come back next week with another basketball coach. And and thank you, Kyle, for coming on.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely.